Bro, 11.3 has been revealed. What's up, Game Loopers? Coach Jizz is back again with another red hot upload, and if you want to know what Riot has in store for the 11.3 patch, which is only a week away, then this video is all you need. I'm going to be breaking down in detail all of the champion buffs, the champion nerfs, the item buffs, the item nerfs, how these will affect the meta, and whether it will be worth playing these champions in the near future. Now, there are so many changes here, guys, so as we go through them, I want you to tell me which change you are most excited about. Now, to master any of the champions on this list or to just reach your max potential on the Rift, please do yourself a favor and check out our amazing website, GameLoop.com. Our exclusive, fresh, challenger level content is unmatched. Links, as always, in the description and comment section. Alright, let's get into it, and we're going to start off with the biggest nerf champion this patch, and I think it's going to please everyone unless you've been abusing him, of course, and that's Pantheon. So your Q will now deal 70% damage to minions and monsters. Not just minions, so all of you jungle Pantheons out there, yeah, your clear is going to be weaker, but wait for it, your Q cooldown is also increasing at earlier levels from 10 to 8 seconds to 13 to 8 seconds. 3 seconds at rank 1. Pretty crazy. Mid and top lane Panther also affected, so bullying your opponent early on is harder, and jungle Panthers again smashed, especially when you're trying to clear Raptors, Krugs, and Wolves, like you're really going to struggle. And 11.3, as you're about to find out, just looks doomed for Panth, I'm sorry to say. Or am I? Now, I'm not finished because as Pantheon, your core items are also getting nerfed. Iron Spike Whips active, which is the new Tiamat active pretty much, is no longer going to deal double damage to minions and monsters below 50% HP, so your wave clear and jungle clear is once again jabbed. Now, this whip nerf is also huge for other champions building it, so Aatrox, Riven, Olaf, even Talon, so their wave clear and jungle clear is a lot worse too. Now, on top of that, the whip's evolution, Gore Drinker, I'm sure you're all familiar with this item by now because, well, pretty much every champion is exploiting it, is also getting nerfed. Now, the active's healing is down 33%, so in fights, you can't press one key and regen all of your health. This was really obnoxious, so for Pantheon in particular, along with all the other nerfs just mentioned, I wouldn't be surprised if his play rate dropped to 0%, honestly. But this also means that the Aatroxes, the Rivens, the Olafs, the Talons, whoever builds Gore Drinker are also worse off. Now, there's one more serious nerf affecting Pantheon this patch. I mean, if that wasn't already enough, and it's the Sterix Gauge. The passive shield is cut in half, and its duration is down by a second, which, yeah, is a big nerf, but Gauge was so broken anyway that it will still be good, but then you have to think about all of the hits Panther's already taken, right? This finishes him off. It's like the final nail in the coffin. Other champions like Darius, Set, Camille, Olaf, and Aatrox will also be weaker though, just because Gauge is less forgiving. Now, let me talk about Aatrox for a second too, and this leads me into our next item nerf. So Gore Drinker will be weaker, Gauge will be weaker, Aatrox's other core item is also going to be weaker, and you guessed it, Ravenous Hydra is also on Riot's naughty list. Now, its Omnivamp is down by a flat 5%, so if you build this, you're not regenning HP nearly as much as you were. So your mid and late game is what really is affected here, seeing as you get Ravenous Hydra second or third, depending on who you are playing. Other champions that will feel this include Camille, who is one of the strongest mid to late game carries at the moment, Fiora as well, Riven, Talon. It's a really tough patch 11.3 for bruisers. And speaking of bruisers, let's talk about some nerfs coming to one in particular who has been overperforming even after 4 nerfs in the last few patches. So if you're playing Olaf, it's not looking good because not only are Riot reducing the power in your core items, but also you. Your base health is lower and your passive's attack speed is decreasing, meaning your early game is weaker. Your clear is slower and less healthy, and your dueling potential as a result is also weaker, so you're far more exploitable. What compounds this problem too is the simple fact that your mid game where you really shine is way worse because your item spikes are nowhere near as strong. So for Olaf at 11.3, you don't really have any windows of strength. If you've been playing these bruisers, by the way, let me know what you think of these changes. So if I were you, I'd be looking at other champions to play. But moving on to the next champion nerfs, we're going to talk about the 2 best champions in League right now because both of them will be weaker in patch 11.3. So to all of you gaining Freelo with Ivern and Seraphine, listen up. So for Ivern, your health per level is down, so yeah, you're going to be more killable throughout a game, which is important because even without this, only one of your core items, Moonstone Renewer, gave you health. But now you're not going to have as much survivability. And if you're playing Ivern top because you saw Wonder do it for G2, this makes you squish your own lane and again, diveable, killable, and snowballable, you name it. That's not all because your shield power is also down at later levels, and this hits Ivern where it hurts, so your teammates in Daisy will be less empowered if you like, and your utility isn't as impactful. Unfortunately for Ivern too, Staff of Flowing Water is getting nerfed, so your Moonstaff build is weaker, giving 10 less OP, so your shields, yeah, they're not going to be as strong. Now the most popular enchanters will also feel this, so Soraka, Lulu, Sona, so the whole class is weaker. Now Ivern is the highest win rate champion in the game at the moment, guys, and a nerf or two I guess is warranted, but will this be too much? Let me know what you think down below. So yeah, Seraphine is getting nerfed too. Your passive damage is down, so you will be less oppressive in lane, so if you're an AD carry out there, you should be happy. Your base shield is also down on your W at all ranks, so your teammates aren't as buffed, and the shield you get for yourself is also weaker at each rank, so everyone is just more killable basically. Like Ivern, Seraphine shares the same win rate, the number 1, right, and will be impacted just as Ivern will be by the Staff of Flowing Winds nerf. These nerfs will affect Seraphine in all roles as well, so mid, as a bot lane AP carry, and of course support. But guys, there is a bit of saving grace here, and for AD carries especially, this will be a great help. Now who knows what the item Chemtech Putrefier is? Well, this is a support item, and I didn't even really know it existed until now, that in 11.3 is giving 5 more ability haste, 20 in total, and will also have a new effect. So if you shield or heal a teammate, that teammate's next damaging attack or ability will inflict 60% Grievous Wounds for 3 seconds. Now this next patch is a massive cut to healing already. Well, this just adds even more fuel to that fire, and what this means is that supports will have an anti-healing item if the game requires it. And if you're an AD carry, you are essentially going to save 800 gold because the earnest won't be on you to provide your team with Grievous Winds from Executioner's Calling. You can spend this on your major items and hit your power spikes quicker, so this Putrefier is good for support, but also good for ADC. And yeah, a little bit of compensation for Ivern and Seraphine. Alright, the next big nerf we have to address is one of the fastest clearing junglers in the game right now, and that's Taliyah. So Riot are reverting the passive nerf they made. So your movement speed is back to what it was before 11.1, and this is great because you can get around the map to make more plays and get into position to use your ultimate earlier, so your overall pressure is back to being insane. But the nerf Riot are making is to your Q. So every zone you throw out after the first is going to deal 80% damage to monsters, not 100%. Now your clear is ridiculous at the moment, even Taliyah mains have to agree. The good news though is that this isn't that big and you will still be one of, if not the best clearers on the Rift. Now there is one item nerf that will dial back some of your mid-game power, and that's to Zhonya's Hourglass. But there is an item buff that kind of saves you here, and this goes for every mage in the game, so listen up. Seeker's Arm Guard will be 100 gold more expensive, so Zhonya's is too. Honestly, it's not so bad because most of the time you're going to be buying Stopwatch and Fiendish Codex before that, but still, mid laners like Fizz and Kassadin who rush Arm Guard into AD matchups, yeah, this is kind of important, but the magic resist equivalent to Zhonya's, Banshee's Veil, is getting a great buff. So Verdant Barrier will be cheaper, so Banshee's is more accessible, and once completed, you're getting 15 more AP for 100 more gold, and this is massive, and is now a legit option along with Zhonya's. Against mage-heavy teams, this will be nutty, and this is great for Taliyah and the mage class in general. Now, from all the changes impacting you as Taliyah, though yes, your early game will definitely be weaker, and you will have to be careful against aggressive early game junglers, but once you start getting your major items, you will still be a beast. Now, let's talk about another mage jungler who isn't going to be as strong come 11.3, and this nerf is to one of the best solo Q champions, Elise. Now in 11.2, Riot nerfed your spider form Q, while in 11.3 they are nerfing your human form Q. The damage will be lower at later levels, and this is actually important because you max this first so your early to mid game isn't as strong. Whether you're farming or fighting, it's just not going to be as effective. Now in addition, your spider attack speed is lower at later levels, and this will make clearing camps more difficult, but I don't think this is that important because yeah, you should still be able to clear your camps quickly enough with a little less attack speed. All in all, Elise is one of the best performing champions this current patch, but again, the question is whether these nerfs are too much. Let me know what you think. Guys, I'm going to stay with the mages again because there are more nerfs to talk about. Since the changes in 10.25 to this mid laner, she has been one of the most powerful in the game, and right now in 11.2 is just the best. So Anivia is getting a couple of nerfs next patch. Your Q-based damage and AP ratio will be lower, meaning your early game is weaker, and your mid to late game is weaker too. Now on top of that, your ultimate cooldown at max rank is increasing to 2 seconds instead of 1, but this will have little impact because at that stage in a game you already have enough ability haste to get it down enough to repeatedly use it in fights. Like being able to use it 1.5 seconds after using it, it's not a big deal. Now remember, Banshee's Veil is getting a nice buff, so yes, you're not going to be as OP as you are right now, but it's definitely not all doom and gloom. I mean, just remember what's happening to Pantheon. Okay, we're going back to the jungle now, guys, and we have to talk about nerfs coming to 2 champions and then to one of their core items, so this is significant. significant. Let's start with Udyr. So your Phoenix Stance's aura damage is down at later levels, and all of you Trick 2Gs, well, can breathe a sigh of relief because this is way less severe than what most were anticipating. But there is more not so great news, and that is one of your core items, Dead Man's Plate, is also on the chopping block. Now the item's health is down to 400 from 475, meaning you're more death prone, but also means your healing from your Turtle Stance is less effective. So opening the gates, well, you're going to have to be more careful. Now this also impacts Gnar, Darius, Sett, and the other champion copping a nerf, and that's Rammus. But it doesn't affect Rammus nearly as much because you are all about that armor. The loss of 75 health can really just be brushed aside. Now the nerf to Rammus himself though is this: your taunt cooldown is increasing to a flat 12 seconds, but this is very placebo. Reason being, Rammus with Turbo Chem Tank is just super oppressive, especially in lower elo, and the ability haze from the item's core stats and its mythic passive still mean you will be getting off multiple taunts during longer teamfights. There is certainly no reason to stop playing Rammus at 11.3. So the last of the champion nerfs, guys, is to one of the best performing top laners at the moment, and that's Cho'Gath. But this nerf will have minimal impact. I mean, just look at it. Less damage in your E at later levels, like who cares? Your E's real damage comes from the target's maximum health and your feast stacks, not from its base magic damage. Now what's really promising for all you Cho'Gath mains out there is that two major items you can buy are getting buffed. These include Frozen Heart and Force of Nature. So Frozen Heart is providing 10 less armor for 200 less gold, which is well worth it, and champions like Malphite, Nasus, and even Ryze should be happier because they get access to that mana earlier. And Force of Nature's movement speed passive is giving more MS each time you get hit by an ability. So beefy engages like Zac and the Gaff will benefit, but the truth is that Spirit Visage and Abyssal Mask are just better anti-magic resist items. Still though, despite the nerf to Cho'Gath, these item buffs mean 11.3 might even be better than 11.2. Alright, it's now time for the champion buffs, Game Weepers, and there are some massive ones in here, especially to champions that aren't having a lot of fun right now. So let's break them all down. First up, we have Riven, and this buff has caused a lot of commotion on Twitter and on Reddit. Riot have decided to lower Riven's E cooldown, so her Valor, by 2 seconds at each rank. Meaning at max rank, this is just 6 seconds. Now you will still be maxing Q first and most likely E second, but listen to this. Your E can be on a 3-second cooldown with just 4 items. So if you build a Gore Drinker, Black Cleaver, Ravenous Hydra, and Lucidity Boots, 95 ability haste, which is 49% CDR. This is going to be nuts, but I don't really know if I want more edgy Riven players in my games. But will these buffs be enough to compensate for Riven's core item nerfs? What do you box fans think? Alright, moving on to the next champion buff for 11.3, and to anyone who misses being able to play Ezreal, well, in a week's time, maybe, just maybe, you're back in business. Now, Riot are increasing the AD ratio in your Q by 10%. Now, this sounds like nothing, and seeing as Ezreal is one of the worst champions at the moment, I think every Ezreal player was hoping for more. But 10% more damage will definitely help you survive and perhaps win the laning phase. You see, your Q will deal close to 10 more damage in the early game, which does matter unless you're Shaco, and late game this can account for up to 40 extra damage. And remember, you have your Q up almost permanently, so you will be even stronger the later the game goes. The issue for Ezreal though is that there are a lot stronger AD carries available, and as we're about to find out, every other marksman will be better off too next patch. Still, I would love to know what you think about this buff, by the way. Do you think I'm making it out to be more than it actually is? Now next up, guys, we have a champion who's been struggling with all the grievous wounds and anti-healing, but next patch these two buffs will, they will help, but it's nothing to write home about, to be honest. For Sylas players, your Q's mana cost will be a flat 55, which funnily enough is a nerf at the first rank, but if you max it into difficult matchups, this will be handy because you can spam it more. So the other buff is to your W, so its base damage is up by 5 at each rank, and its AB scaling is up by 5% too. Now you won't notice this much early game if at all, but once you have a few key items under your belt and you have 5 points in your W and you have a ton of ability haste, your W will be a big force in teamfights. Zhonya's costing an extra 100 gold will slow down your scaling slightly, but 11.3 seems to be a banger for Sylas. Alright, we're going to focus our attention on another marksman buff next patch, guys, and I also want to talk about 3 hella important item buffs that are going to make AD carry some of the strongest champions in the game. Okay, so the other marksman rider buffing next patch is Jinx. So your rockets have an extra 25 range at each rank. Now this is nice, but is it going to let you compete with Kai'Sa, Vayne, Jhin? No. You see, the core problem for Jinx is that you can't match the damage output of other AD carries, and this is why I was salivating a little bit over the Ezreal buff, you know, because he's getting damage. You see, you might be able to outrange Caitlyn with your rockets with a couple of points in your Q, you might be able to poke and chase down enemies more frequently, but it's just 25 range. It's a fingernail's distance. If you disagree with me here, guys, feel free to throw one at me in the comments, and that goes for all of these changes. Agree or disagree, make sure to let me know your thoughts. Right, so let's talk about the 3 marksman items I alluded to. One of them is a buff to a more Immortal Shield Bow, the lifesteal mythic for AD carries. So you're getting 5 more attack damage and 5% more attack speed. Now in terms of raw damage, Kraken Slayer and then Gale Force is still better, but this closes that gap right up, and the utility you get from Shield Bow is the best in terms of surviving. The dash from Gale Force is useful, don't get me wrong, but the shield and extra lifesteal from Shield Bow are just more consistent. It's going to be effective every single game. You know, you might mistime your Gale Force active or use it into a wall accidentally. There's human error involved. So if you're a Draven, Kalista, Samira, Ashe, even Graves, Gangplank, or even Kindred, you are going to be cheering. But there are 2 champions that will be cheering more. That's Yasuo and Yone. Now I know you guys are pulling your hair out, and that's because these 2 are incredibly strong right now, and a Shield Bow buff, well, lots of people are going to be question mark picking Rito HQ, that's for sure. Now the second marksman item getting buffed is Phantom Dancer, which will give you 20 attack damage instead of 0, but 20% less attack speed, but this is POG. As I said, damage matters right now, so trading a little attack speed, I mean you will easily have enough of your Mythic 2, is giga worth. With PD as well, you will also be able to stack its passive quicker, and even though this passive will offer less damage still, getting that damage earlier is key. So Vayne, who's the game's big PD user, will be even stronger, and for Graves and Kindred, this is also unreal. Now some champions like Tryndamere and Kai'Sa who buy this on occasion might start buying this on the reg too. Oh, and how can we forget, for Yasuo and Yone, yeah, PD will be 100% viable. You bought Mercury Treads or Plated Steel Caps as your boots, and you wanted an attack speed crit item after Shield Bow, i.e. third of course. Now Marksman and Mages guys, next patch I'm telling you, they are going to be the nuts. Now the last marksman item receiving a buff is Lord Dominik's Regards, and its armor penetration is increasing by 10%. So if you're playing Draven, if you're playing Graves, if you're playing Jhin, and you're up against some beefy armored tanks, LDR will be the answer, and more importantly, better next patch. And you never know, with Frozen Heart buffed and Cho'Gath and Nasus in a really strong spot, you will for sure have to start building LDR in some games. Okay, the next champion buff and item buff we have to get into is the upcoming buff to AP Shyvana, and these are going to make Shiv busted, I'm calling it now. So get this, Rada adding a 40% AP ratio to your Q, so as the game progresses you will be able to clear camps quicker, and one-shot champions you can jump on, and they are also adding movement speed to your W based on how much AP you have. So for every 100 AP, that's 8% movement speed you get, and you already get bonus movement speed from your W anyway. Now what's really interesting next patch is the Rada buffing Horizon Focus. So for the same gold you get 115 AP, that's 15 more, and the passive damage will be easy to proc because the required minimum range of your ability is down by 50 to 700. So yes, this is great for long range mages like Lux, Seraph, Vel'Koz, Ziggs, but for AP Shyvana, this makes your Flame Breath unbelievably scary. Like how many of you have lost more than half your HP from a Shyvana when she's in dragon form? Well, this easily has enough range to proc the passive from Horizon Focus, so deleting squishies will be even easier. A Banshee's Veil if you're a mid laner, or Mercurial Scimitar if you're an ADC, these will not be enough to stop this from chunking you. AFK farming AP Shiv, guys, it's looking like she's going to be top tier in 11.3. Now let's talk about 3 buffs coming to some off-tank mages in 11.3, and after appearing on our worst champion videos for weeks, Singed, Mordekaiser and Vladimir may no longer appear on them. Now there's also a mythic item buff that will, well, help out 2 of these, which we'll talk about in just a second. Now guys, for Singed, you might finally be able to deal more damage than the support next patch because your Q's AP ratio is 10% higher. No troll, this is actually something for those chads going full AP Singed or AP Bruiser Singed. You can clear waves faster, and for enemies chasing you, well, maybe they have to think twice now. But if you're going full chem tank Singed, then yes, you're not going to see the benefits. Now for Mordekaiser, your E's cooldown is down 2 seconds at each rank, and I hate to say it, but this is weak. It will help your laning a little bit because you can engage and disengage more often, but Mord's big problem in 11.2 is that he scales nowhere near like he used to, and other top laners can hard stomp him post-mythic item. But these AD fighters are getting nerfed, be it directly or indirectly through their items, and Mord's go-to mythic is getting buffed, so hold on tight, we're about to talk about it right after the buff to Vladimir, guys. As you can see, your ultimate's cooldown is down to 120 at all ranks, and just looking at it, it seems good. You can use it more liberally and you don't have to ping your ulti cooldown as much before your team wants to fight, but in this meta, anti-healing is huge, and getting to that late game where you are still very strong as Vlad, it's going to be harder, and your ultimate's cooldown, well, will that help you get there? I doubt it. But for these champions, guys, Singed and Mordekaiser specifically, Riftmaker is getting buffed. Okay, so the flat Omnivamp is down, but with 3 legendary items, you will have 1% more in total, so not the end of the world here. You're getting 100 more health, so you're harder to take down as soon as you buy your mythic, which is important, and the mythic passive is changing so it gives AP and Omnivamp instead of magic penetration. Now this is good, I believe anyway, because for the matchups you struggle in as Singed and Mordekaiser, you know, against AD fighters, it's not like they're stacking magic resist. They might get Mercury Treads and that's it. and your Sorcerer's Shoes are enough to shred through their resistance. So having 32 more AP is more valuable than just flat out Magic Pen, unless you are up against a tank. And we all know Cho'Gath and Nasus, for example, are going to be the best top laners in 11.3, so it's going to be hard to do anything against them, that's for sure. This buff seems to push Mord, Vlad, and Singed in the right direction, but will it make them more playable? Alright guys, the last champion buff coming in 11.3 is to an Enchantress who is one of the worst of her class, and that's Karma. So next patch you will be regenerating more mana, and your Q will cost 10 less mana. So if you're playing Karma in top and mid lane, and I know most Karma players want to, this makes your laning phase stronger, being able to throw out more Qs in particular, and Ws and Es. But yeah, it was so weak beforehand that now it's just weak. Support Karma will still be the way to play it to win, especially given how good the Moonstaff build is at the moment, and with the Putrefy buffs, well if you Mantra Shield your whole team, every ally has Grievous Wounds. But yeah, definitely not eye-popping buffs, but hey, at least it's a buff I guess. Now we're at the final 2 changes for next patch guys, and it's a big one, isn't it? The patch that is. And I just want to give you guys one last friendly reminder to head on over to our website GameLoop.com at the end of the video. We have hundreds of challenger courses, guides, and videos just one click away, so do what thousands of summoners have already done and get signed up. Links down below. Alright, the penultimate change of 11.3 is to an AD mythic item that has seen more nerfs than, well, Olaf recently, and that's Eclipse. The shield is going to be stronger on ranged champions, but the Omnivamp is down 2%. Honestly, champions that used to build this, like Jhin, Misfortune, and Graves, will still choose Gale Force or Shield Bow, and for champions that still build it now, they are all melee champions. So this is a nerf on paper, but champions like Pantheon, who might as well be unavailable next patch, Zed and Kiana, don't build it for the Omnivamp. The lethality and movement speed are all still there, so it will still be viable. Here we are, Game Loopers, the last buff of 11.3, and this is to an item that very few people build, but next patch, yeah, maybe it's worth considering. So Silvermere Dawn, this is basically the Bruiser QSS, but the same 3000 gold is going to give you 5 more AD and 100 more HP. Generally, it's still going to be an underwhelming item, but against the right team composition, this would be effective if you're a Darius, a Sett, a Garen, and you're running into a Lulu or a Malzahar or a Leona, anyone who can stop you getting to that enemy backline, so it's worth considering. Guys, that's it for the 11.3 patch. Thanks so much for watching. Please leave a like before you leave and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a beat. This has been Coach Iggs, and until tomorrow, peace.